Every person wants their life to change. They want better relationships, more success, deeper peace, more freedom. But here's the truth: nothing around you will change until something within you does. The world doesn't bend to your wishes. It mirrors your mindset, your habits, your energy. People spend years waiting for a lucky break, waiting for someone to save them, waiting for the perfect timing. But that moment never comes. The truth is, you are the moment. The change you've been waiting for is the one you must become. You see, everything begins and ends with you. The way you think, the way you react, the way you show up, that's what's shaping your reality. Change doesn't come from reading another book, watching another video, or hoping for a miracle. It comes from decision, the decision to stop blaming, stop waiting, and start becoming. You want to change your life, start with yourself. Because until you shift your mindset, your story stays the same. Awareness is the spark that ignites transformation. You cannot change what you refuse to see. Most people go through life asleep, reacting to everything around them, unaware that their own thoughts, beliefs, and emotions are silently controlling their destiny. They keep repeating the same mistakes, falling into the same patterns, and blaming the world for their results, not realizing that their life is simply mirroring what's happening inside them. Until you become aware of what's driving you, the hidden fears, the self-doubt, the old stories you keep telling yourself, you'll keep recreating the same reality over and over again. Awareness is not always comfortable, but it's the only way to reclaim your power. The moment you pause long enough to look at yourself honestly, everything begins to shift. Awareness strips away illusion. It forces you to confront the truth about who you are, where you are, and why you're there. That truth can be painful because it exposes all the excuses, all the reasons you've been stuck. But pain is not punishment, it's feedback. It's the universe showing you that something needs to change. Most people spend their lives avoiding that discomfort, distracting themselves with business, entertainment, or denial. But the ones who dare to look within, the ones who say, I need to understand myself, are the ones who grow, because awareness opens the door to choice. You can't choose a new path until you realize you've been walking in circles. When you finally see your own patterns clearly, you gain power. You begin to notice how your emotions influence your actions, how your thoughts create your outcomes, and how your beliefs shape the way you see the world. Awareness allows you to separate who you truly are from the stories you've been conditioned to believe. You start to realize that you're not your failures, not your fears, not your past. You're the consciousness observing it all. And from that place, you can decide what to keep and what to release. That's when growth begins, when you stop being the victim of your patterns and start becoming the creator of your life. Awareness also demands courage. It's not easy to look in the mirror and admit that some of your struggles are self-inflicted. It's easier to blame your parents, your boss, your circumstances. But until you take full ownership, you remain powerless. Awareness asks you to be brutally honest, to see where you've settled, where you've lied to yourself, where you've been avoiding responsibility. That honesty can sting, but it's also liberating, because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And that truth becomes the foundation for change. When you become aware, you start to observe your inner dialogue. You catch the voice that says, I'm not good enough, or I'll never succeed, and you question it. You begin to realize that those thoughts aren't facts, they're habits, old scripts replaying in your mind. The moment you become aware of them, you take their power away. You stop reacting automatically and start responding intentionally. That single shift from reaction to awareness changes everything. It gives you space to make conscious choices, to align your actions with your values, to move toward the life you actually want instead of the one you've been tolerating. Awareness also connects you to presence. When you're aware, you're no longer lost in the past or worried about the future. You're here fully engaged in this moment. And in that state, you can see opportunities you used to miss. You can feel gratitude instead of lack. You can respond with wisdom instead of impulse. Awareness heightens every experience. It transforms how you think, how you love, how you lead. It turns ordinary moments into lessons and obstacles into teachers. The truth is, nothing changes until you see it. You can't shift a pattern you don't acknowledge. You can't heal a wound you don't admit is there. Awareness is the light that exposes the darkness, not to shame you, but to guide you out of it. The second you become aware, you awaken. And once you awaken, change is no longer something you chase. It becomes inevitable. Taking radical responsibility is one of the most powerful decisions you will ever make in your life. It's the moment you stop pointing fingers, stop blaming circumstances, and stop waiting for someone else to fix what's wrong. It's the instant you decide that no matter what has happened in your past, no matter how unfair or painful it was, you are the one who will determine what happens next. Responsibility is not about guilt or fault. It's about ownership. It's about reclaiming control over your life by recognizing that you are the common denominator in every result you've ever experienced. The moment you truly accept that, you shift from being a victim of your life to the creator of it. People waste years waiting for others to change, for luck to strike, for the world to finally go their way. But nothing around you will shift until something inside you does. When you take responsibility, you stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I do about it?" That one question transforms your energy completely. It moves you out of helplessness and into action. You begin to see that no matter how bad things look, there's always something you can control: your mindset, your attitude, your effort, your response. Those are the levers of power, and the moment you use them, you begin to reshape your world. Radical responsibility is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront truths you've been avoiding. It requires you to admit that sometimes you've been your own obstacle, that your habits, your fears, your procrastination, or your excuses have kept you stuck. It's much easier to blame the job, the economy, or the people around you, but that blame robs you of power. As long as you think something outside of you controls your life, you stay trapped. The moment you take full ownership, you break free. You realize that even if something isn't your fault, it's still your responsibility to change your response to it. That's where freedom begins. When you take responsibility, you become solution-oriented. Instead of replaying problems in your head, you start asking, what can I learn from this? What's the next step? That shift in mindset is what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. Life will never be without challenges. The difference lies in how you approach them. Responsible people see challenges as opportunities to become stronger, smarter, more capable. They don't wait for perfect conditions, they create them. They don't hope for change, they embody it. Every obstacle becomes fuel for growth. Taking ownership also means you stop outsourcing your happiness. You no longer wait for others to validate you, love you, or make you feel worthy. You realize that fulfillment is an inside job. No one else can give you peace, discipline, or confidence. You have to build those things yourself. And the beauty is, once you do, no one can take them away from you. That's the true power of responsibility. It makes you unshakable because your stability no longer depends on what's happening outside of you. Responsibility doesn't mean control over everything. It means mastery over yourself. You can't dictate what happens, but you can always choose how you interpret it and how you act on it. That's the power that separates average lives from extraordinary ones. The people who rise, who thrive, who build something lasting, they're not the ones who got lucky. They're the ones who said, "I'll find a way," and then did. They understood that waiting is weakness and ownership is strength. Once you fully embrace this truth, your entire identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone things happen to and start seeing yourself as someone who makes things happen. You stop wishing for better days and start creating them. You stop chasing motivation and start building momentum. That's the difference between surviving and leading your life. And when you take that level of ownership, everything, your results, your confidence, your direction begins to shift. Because when you change you, the world has no choice but to follow. Growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from friction, from tension, from being stretched beyond what feels easy. Yet most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid discomfort. They avoid the hard conversation, the new challenge, the risk of failure. They convince themselves that staying safe means staying smart, but what it really means is staying stuck. Every great breakthrough in history, every personal transformation started with someone who was willing to get uncomfortable. You can't evolve while holding on to what's familiar. You have to be willing to walk through the unknown, to face fear head on, and to take steps when you have no guarantee of success. That's where real growth lies, not in certainty, but in courage. When you step outside your comfort zone, you discover strength you didn't know existed. The human spirit is built for expansion, but it only expands through resistance. Think about how muscles grow, they tear before they build. The same principle applies to your life. The discomfort you feel when you're learning, trying, or changing is a signal that you're growing. The problem is most people interpret the discomfort as a sign to stop. They think, this feels hard, maybe I'm not ready, but the truth is that's exactly when you're becoming ready. Discomfort is the bridge between who you are and who you can be. If you quit when it shows up, you'll never cross it. There's a voice in your head that will always try to pull you back to safety. It whispers doubts. What if you fail? What if you're not good enough? What if people judge you? That voice doesn't mean stop, it means stretch. It's your system trying to protect you from the unknown, but the unknown is where every great possibility lies. You can't discover your potential if you never test it. Growth demands risk. You have to risk being bad at something before you can become great at it. You have to risk rejection before you can experience connection. You have to risk falling before you can learn how to fly. That's the price of progress. Discomfort is the tuition for mastery. Most people wait for fear to go away before they move forward. They think courage means feeling confident first, but courage is not the absence of fear. It's action in the face of it. Every time you act despite fear, you build evidence that you're capable. That's how confidence is actually created, through doing. Each small step outside your comfort zone builds trust in yourself. And once that trust grows, fear starts to lose its power over you. What once felt terrifying becomes normal, and what once seemed impossible becomes achievable. That's the compounding effect of discomfort. It strengthens you from the inside out. If you look back at the times in your life when you truly grew, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it probably wasn't during your easiest seasons. It was during the times you were tested, challenged, or stretched. The breakups, the failures, the moments when nothing seemed to go your way, those weren't setbacks, they were invitations. Life was asking you, will you rise or will you retreat? Every difficult moment carries a seed of transformation, but you only receive it when you lean in instead of running away. When you stop seeing discomfort as something to escape and start seeing it as your training ground, everything changes. Discomfort is not punishment, it's preparation. It's how life builds resilience in you, how it shapes your mindset, how it forges the version of you that can handle the next level. If you want more success, more peace, more fulfillment, you have to be willing to grow into the person who can handle it. And that means walking through moments that stretch you, humble you, and demand more from you than you think you can give. But on the other side of that discomfort is power. The kind of power that can only come from choosing growth over ease, expansion over fear, and purpose over comfort. Your thoughts are the architects of your reality. Every action, every emotion, every result in your life begins first as a thought. Yet most people live unconsciously, letting their minds run wild with doubt, fear, and negativity. They think life is happening to them, not realizing they are the ones shaping it with their focus and beliefs. The truth is, your external world will always mirror your internal one. If your thoughts are filled with limitations, your life will reflect those limitations. If your thoughts are empowered, your life will begin to open up in powerful ways. What you consistently dwell on becomes your direction, and your direction becomes your destiny. Your mindset determines how you interpret every event in your life. Two people can experience the exact same situation, yet one sees opportunity while the other sees defeat. The difference isn't luck, it's perception. When you choose to focus on what you can control instead of what you can't, you begin to shift your energy. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this trying to teach me? That simple shift turns every obstacle into an opening, every failure into feedback, every setback into a setup for something greater. Your mindset doesn't just influence how you feel, it determines how you act, and your actions repeated over time shape the results that define your life. Most people underestimate the power of their thoughts. They speak words of limitation over themselves without even realizing it. I'm not good enough. I'll never make it. That's just not for people like me. They repeat those phrases like mantras, and over time, those thoughts become beliefs. Once a belief takes root, it starts guiding your behavior. You won't try for something you don't believe you can have. You won't persist if you think it's pointless. The mind is like a garden. Whatever seeds you plant will grow. If you plant fear and doubt, that's what you'll harvest. But if you plant belief, courage, and possibility, your life begins to change from the inside out. Changing your mindset doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing an empowering interpretation of reality. It means asking, how can I use this instead of why me? When you adopt a growth mindset, you understand that failure isn't final, it's feedback. You stop seeing your current situation as permanent and start seeing it as progress. That's when change begins. Because the moment your thinking shifts, your energy changes, and when your energy changes, your actions follow. You start showing up differently with more conviction, more consistency, more faith in what's possible. And when that happens, the world starts responding to you differently too. Your thoughts have vibration and influence. When you constantly focus on what's missing, you create more scarcity in your life. But when you focus on what you already have and what you can become, you create abundance. Gratitude, belief, and purpose are not just nice ideas. They are forces that attract more of what aligns with them. The most successful people in the world aren't the ones with perfect circumstances. They're the ones with disciplined minds. They've learned how to direct their thoughts toward possibility even when reality looks bleak. They've trained their focus to serve their goals, not sabotage them. Your mindset is your greatest asset or your greatest limitation. If you don't take control of it, the world will. The media, your environment, your past, all of it will feed you stories about who you are and what's possible for you. But you have the power to rewrite that story. You have the ability to choose thoughts that empower you rather than weaken you. And when you do that consistently, you'll start to notice your world shift in extraordinary ways. Because nothing changes until your mind does. And when your mind changes, everything else begins to follow. Transformation is not a single event. It's the result of consistent, deliberate action taken over time. Change doesn't come from one big moment of inspiration. It's built through the daily choices you make when no one's watching. Most people talk about change like it's something that just happens one day, like a switch flips and everything is different. But real change is a process. It's what happens when your decisions begin to align with the future you say you want. It's built through discipline, not desire. Because wanting change doesn't create it, consistent action does. Every small action you take compounds over time. You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. You just need to start doing small things differently and keep doing them. It's easy to underestimate the power of small, consistent progress. Reading 10 pages a day, choosing one healthy meal, committing to 5 minutes of gratitude, saying no to distractions. These may seem insignificant in the moment, but they build momentum. Over time, these small actions change your standards, and your standards define your identity. It's not about perfection, it's about persistence. Every choice you make is a vote for the person you're becoming. Consistency builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. When you tell yourself you're going to do something and then follow through, you strengthen your belief in your own power. That inner trust is the foundation of transformation. Most people fail to change not because they don't know what to do, but because they don't keep their promises to themselves. They start strong, but when it gets hard, they negotiate with their goals. They let temporary feelings dictate permanent outcomes. True growth requires you to act even when you don't feel like it. Discipline is doing what you said you'd do long after the feeling of motivation has faded. There's power in routine, in the structure that keeps you focused even when your emotions fluctuate. The people who transform their lives are not the ones who wait for inspiration. They're the ones who build habits that make progress inevitable. They remove the decision-making from the equation by creating systems that align with their goals. If you want to change your life, change your daily patterns, because your habits are the invisible architecture of your destiny. They determine where your energy goes, what you prioritize, and ultimately who you become. Consistency also exposes you to the truth about your limits and teaches you that most of them are self-imposed. When you show up every day, even in small ways, you start to see that what once felt impossible slowly becomes normal. You realize that momentum is built one step at a time, and that success is rarely a giant leap. It's hundreds of small steps stacked together. The process itself becomes your greatest teacher. It shows you where you're strong, where you resist, and where you still need to grow. Every repetition builds resilience, and every bit of progress, no matter how small, compounds into something powerful. When you commit to consistent action, you stop relying on willpower alone. You create rhythm, and rhythm becomes your ally. There will be days you don't want to show up. Those are the most important days to push through, because that's when you're training your mind to lead, not follow. Change is never about intensity for a week. It's about consistency for a lifetime. Every day you choose to move forward, even just a little, you're proving to yourself that you can. And over time, that proof becomes identity. You stop trying to change your life. You start living as the person who already has. That's how transformation happens, not in a moment, but in the momentum you build one action at a time. Life is constantly presenting moments that test your courage, your vision, and your willingness to act. There will never be a perfect time to start. The stars won't align, fear won't disappear, and certainty will never knock on your door. Waiting for the right moment is how dreams die slowly. Action is what brings clarity. Movement is what brings confidence. You can read all the books, make all the plans, visualize all you want, but nothing changes until you move. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is closed not by intention, but by action. Every single step you take forward reshapes your reality and builds a new version of you. Most people get trapped in the illusion of preparation. They tell themselves they'll start when they have more time, more money, more energy, or more confidence. But the truth is, those things only come after you begin. Action creates energy. Progress creates motivation. When you take that first uncomfortable step, you begin to generate momentum, and momentum is everything. It doesn't matter how small the step is. What matters is that you move. Action has a way of dissolving fear, because once you start doing, your brain shifts from overthinking to problem solving. The energy that was once spent on doubt becomes fuel for progress. You don't need to see the entire path before taking the first step. You just need to trust that clarity will come through movement. Life rewards boldness, not hesitation. Every major change you've ever made began with a single decision, one moment where you said, enough, I'm doing this. That's all it takes. The courage to start, even imperfectly, opens doors you didn't know existed. The opportunities, connections, and breakthroughs you're waiting for are already waiting for you to act. Because until you take that first step, nothing in your environment has a reason to shift. The universe responds to movement, not to indecision. Action also builds identity. Each time you take a step toward your goal, you reinforce the belief that you are capable. You're no longer someone who just dreams. You become someone who does. That shift in identity is where lasting transformation happens. You start seeing yourself as the kind of person who follows through, who faces fear, who doesn't let circumstances define them. And once that belief takes hold, consistency becomes natural. You don't need to force discipline when your actions align with who you believe yourself to be. Taking action doesn't mean you'll always get it right. In fact, you'll probably fail many times, but those failures are not signs to stop. They're feedback. Each one teaches you what works, what doesn't, and how to adapt. The people who achieve extraordinary success aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who get up faster every time they do. They understand that progress isn't linear. It's messy, unpredictable, and full of lessons disguised as setbacks. But every step forward, even the imperfect ones, moves you closer to your potential. At the end of the day, action is how you turn vision into reality. Thinking, wishing, and hoping might feel productive, but they change nothing until you move. Every great transformation begins with the same decision to act now, not later. You can't wait for fear to leave before you start. You have to start so fear loses its power. The longer you delay, the heavier the resistance becomes. But once you begin, everything shifts. The world starts meeting you halfway, opportunities align. People appear, energy returns, and suddenly you realize that the life you were chasing was never out of reach. It was simply waiting for you to take that first step. The truth is, nothing in your life will ever truly change until you do. Not your relationships, not your finances, not your happiness, nothing. Real transformation doesn't start when life gets easier. It begins when you get stronger, when you make the decision to stop waiting and start creating. You've been through enough to know that no one is coming to save you, and that's the best news you'll ever hear, because it means you already hold the power to turn everything around. The moment you change your mindset, your energy, your habits, and your standards, your entire world begins to shift. Change is not about waiting for a sign, it's about becoming the sign. So from this moment on, promise yourself this: you won't keep living small just because it feels safe. You won't let fear dictate your choices. You won't let your past define what's possible for your future. Instead, you'll rise one decision, one action, one day at a time. Remember, you were not built to stay stuck. You were built to grow, to evolve, to create a life that reflects the power inside you. You are capable of far more than you've been giving yourself credit for. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Create it. Take that next step today, even if it's small, because once you do, momentum will carry you forward in ways you never imagined. If this message spoke to you, if it sparked something deep inside, then make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs this reminder, and join this community of people who are ready to transform their lives from the inside out. Every week, we bring you powerful messages that help you rise higher, think deeper, and take charge of your destiny. Thank you so much for watching, for showing up for yourself, and for believing in the possibility of more. Remember, nothing changes until you do, and today could be the day that changes everything. Stay strong, stay focused, and never stop growing. Until next time, take care, stay unstoppable, and thank you for being here.